The river is called the Niemen, and on the 24th of June, 1812, the largest army the world has ever seen begins to cross it. More than 500,000 men, French and Polish, Italian and German, Dutch and Swiss. The gathered manpower of an entire continent, bent to one man's, will pour eastward into the Russian Empire behind the Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte. He is at the absolute summit of his power. He has humbled Austria, crushed Prussia, placed his brothers on the thrones of Europe, and built the largest empire the West has known since Rome. Now he means to bring the last defiant great power on the continent to heel. Tsar Alexander I has abandoned the continental system. Napoleon's vast economic blockade designed to strangle Britain and reopened his ports to London. The invasion is the answer. Napoleon expects a short, violent campaign settled in a single decisive battle, followed by a dictated peace that will chain Russia to France once more. But Russia does not give him his battle. The Russian generals, Barclay de Tolly first, then the old one-eyed fox Mikhail Kutuzov, understand that they cannot beat the Grande Armée in the open field, and so they refuse to try. They retreat, and as they retreat they burn crops, villages, granaries, anything that might feed the invader. The French advance deeper and deeper into an emptying, blackened land, their supply lines stretching to the breaking point, their horses dying in the traces, their stragglers swallowed by Cossacks and the endless distance. The army that crossed the Niemen is bleeding away mile by mile without a shot fired in a single great battle. Napoleon chases the mirage of a decisive victory ever deeper into the east, toward the ancient capital of Moscow. He gets his battle at last on the 7th of September at a village called Borodino, 70 miles short of Moscow. It is the bloodiest single day of the entire Napoleonic age. By nightfall, some 70,000 men lie dead or wounded in the smoke. The French batter the Russian line and storm its great redoubts. And then, at the decisive moment, with Kutuzov's army reeling, and one hard push perhaps enough to shatter it, Napoleon's marshals beg him to release the Imperial Guard, his elite and untouched final reserve, to finish the work. Napoleon hesitates. He will not gamble his last reserve 2,000 miles from Paris. He holds the Guard back. The Russian army, mauled but unbroken, slips away to the east in good order. It is the hinge on which everything turns. A week later, the French march into Moscow and find it nearly empty. The Russians have abandoned their holy city, and within hours it is ablaze, fired by its own people, until 3/4 of it is ash. Napoleon sits in the charred Kremlin and waits for Alexander to sue for peace, as every other defeated monarch in Europe has done before him. The letters he sends go unanswered. The Tsar has resolved to make no peace while a single Frenchman stands on Russian soil, and he has time and winter on his side. After 5 wasted weeks, Napoleon finally accepts that no peace is coming and orders the retreat. It becomes one of the great catastrophes in military history. The Russian winter descends, and starvation and the Cossacks. Men freeze by the thousand, drown at the icy crossing of the Berezina, fall away into the white. Of the more than 500,000 who crossed the Niemen, a frost-bitten remnant staggers out. The spell of Napoleon's invincibility is broken, and within 3 years it carries him to Leipzig, to abdication, to Elba, and to final ruin at Waterloo. But our world is only one of many. Time runs in branches, and every branch turns on a single moment that might have gone another way, a reserve held back or a reserve unleashed. Somewhere in that endless web of what-ifs lies a reality in which, on the smoke-choked field of Borodino, the Emperor does not hesitate. Let us cross over and follow that world to its end. The moment comes in the late afternoon at Borodino. Ney and Marat send their desperate plea to the rear. Send the Guard, and we will annihilate them. In our timeline, Napoleon refused. Here, he looks out at the broken Russian center, weighs the prize against the risk one last time, and gives the order. The Imperial Guard, 20,000 of the finest soldiers in the world, advances for the first time in the campaign. The exhausted Russian line, already cracked, cannot hold them. What was a marginal, indecisive victory becomes a rout, and then a slaughter. Kutuzov's army does not slip away in good order this time. It disintegrates. By the time the sun goes down, the only field army standing between Napoleon and the whole of Russia has ceased to exist. Moscow still falls and still burns, but everything beneath the smoke is now different. Alexander's whole strategy had rested on a single hard truth, that he could lose his capital and still keep his army. Trading the holy city for time until winter and distance devoured the invader. With his army gone, that truth collapses. There is no force left to rally behind, no winter campaign to wage, nothing between the Grande Armée and St. Petersburg but ruined roads. And in the Tsar's own court, the war's many enemies begin to stir. The nobility had hated this war from the start. It had wrecked their trade, burned their estates, butchered their sons, and they remember, as Alexander remembers, how his own father, Tsar Paul, was strangled in his bedchamber by a conspiracy of noblemen only 11 years before. A Tsar who has lost his army, his capital, and his aura of divine favor is a Tsar who may not survive his own palace. To save his throne and his dynasty, Alexander does the thing he swore he never would. He asks for terms. The peace Napoleon dictates from the ashes of the Kremlin is a second Tilsit, harsher than the first. Russia is bound back into the continental system, its ports shut against Britain once more. It pays a crushing indemnity, and along its western edge, Napoleon raises the thing the Romanovs feared above all others, a resurrected Poland. The Duchy of Warsaw is enlarged into a Kingdom of Poland, a French client state carved from the land Russia had swallowed in the partitions, a permanent armed buffer planted on her doorstep, and bound by gratitude and fear to Paris. In a single stroke, Napoleon has done what he came to do, not to occupy the unconquerable vastness of Russia, which no army on earth could hold, but to break its Tsar's will and chain it once more to France. The Eastern question is settled. Napoleon turns west, the master of a continent from Madrid to the Russian frontier, his invincibility not shattered but confirmed beyond all doubt. The consequences ripple outward through the years that follow. The Great War of Liberation that, in our timeline, rose from the wreckage of the Grande Armée, the Prussian generals defecting, Austria turning her coat. All of Germany rising to throw off the French yoke at Leipzig in 1813 simply never happens. There is no wreckage to rise from. With Russia beaten and bound and the legend of Napoleon intact, no continental power dares assemble a sixth coalition. The Confederation of the Rhine holds, the satellite kingdoms hold, and the continental system, with Russia at last enforcing it, finally begins to bite, as Napoleon always intended. Britain, mistress of the seas, but shut out of every European port from Lisbon to St. Petersburg, fights on alone, her one foothold on the continent, the bleeding ulcer of the war in Spain. That war in Spain remains Napoleon's one unhealed wound. The Spanish guerrillas fight on, and the Duke of Wellington's redcoats hold their lines in the Iberian Mountains. But with the East settled, Napoleon can at last pour the full weight of his empire south across the Pyrenees, and the British position, never more than a toehold, grows untenable. Whether London fights on or finally pulls its army back to the sea, the shape of the new age is clear. On one side, a French-ruled continent, the Napoleonic Code, the metric system, secular administration, careers thrown open to talent. The old feudal order swept away from the Atlantic to the Niemen. On the other, an island empire withdrawing into its ships and its colonies to India and Canada and the oceans of the world. The contest between them hardens into a long, cold standoff across the Channel, a divided planet of land power against sea power that may last for generations. Across the Atlantic, another war is already burning. The young United States declared war on Britain in that same June of 1812 and fights the empire to a standstill at sea and along the Canadian frontier. In our timeline, a tired but unbeaten Britain made a white peace with the Americans and turned to finish Napoleon at Waterloo. Here there's no Napoleon left to finish, and a London stretched thin across the globe, friendless in Europe, beset in the New World, has every reason to cut its losses quickly and hoard its strength for the long contest with France. The British century in this world does not begin with triumph on a Belgian field. It begins with retrenchment, a wary, watchful empire of the sea, biding its time and waiting for the colossus on the continent to crack from within. And yet, even this triumphant world is not the simple paradise Napoleon's admirers might imagine, and honesty demands we say so. His empire carried genuine things of value: equality before the law, religious tolerance, the end of serfdom and guild and aristocratic privilege across half of Europe, and a continent unified under one rational code decades early might have been spared some of the horrors our own 19th and 20th centuries would bring. But it was still an empire built by conquest and held together by censorship, secret police, and the endless blood tax of conscription that drained France of a generation of its young men. Empires raised on the genius of one man rarely outlive him. His only legitimate heir is a small boy in the Tuileries, the King of Rome. Not yet 2 years old when the Grande Armée crossed the Niemen, who would one day inherit a continent held together by nothing but his father's name. The likeliest fate of that inheritance, once Napoleon is gone, is a war of succession among marshals and client kings, or a slow hardening into the very reactionary despotism the empire was born to overthrow, and the fierce new force he himself had loosed upon the world: nationalism. The conviction of every people that it should rule itself would not stay caged forever in Germany and Italy and Poland and Spain. The peace of a conqueror is not the same thing as peace. That is the strange lesson hiding inside this what-if. We remember Napoleon's Russian campaign as the disaster that destroyed him, the snows, the Berezina, the long frozen road home. But the catastrophe was not written in the winter. It was written in a single moment on a single September afternoon when a tired man 2,000 miles from home looked at his last reserve and chose not to risk it. He saved his guard and lost his empire. Had he gambled them on the field of Borodino, he might have won Russia and kept the world. The man who conquered Europe was undone, in the end, not by any enemy, but by an instant of his own caution. This has been historically parallel.